BBC Sussex and BBC Surrey. Very good to have your company, and I'm keeping you company through until 4 today, in for Alison first today, and all through this week. A reminder of the things we're talking about on the show today. If you want to get in touch with the programme, I'll give you the number in just a moment. We are talking about that theft of some £50 million worth of jewellery from a property belonging to Tamara Eccleston. And I said earlier on in the programme that for the vast majority of us, that figure is incomprehensible. But one would assume still incredibly sentimental, the stuff that's been taken from Tamara Eccleston. And we want to know, please, about that one item of jewellery that you would ever hate to be parted from. What is it? And tell me the story behind it, please. This is my number.
Call BBC Sussex
0800 232 1045.
BBC Sussex.
Love to hear your stories on that. And also, we're not going to give up on this, or at least the producer is determined we get at least one story on this between now and 4 this afternoon. The time a celebrity has come to your rescue, and we use the term celebrity in the loosest possible description, so A-lister through to Z-lister, but the time where you encountered a celebrity who kind of gave you a helping hand, who helped you out of a difficult situation. What was it? The singer Ellie Goulding in the news today for helping out a driver who was being pushed sideways. It's a slightly bizarre story, but being pushed sideways by a Royal Mail lorry in West London. You can see this all over social media today. But it doesn't need to be Ellie Goulding. It doesn't need to be somebody as famous as Ellie Goulding, but somebody from the world of celebrity who came to your rescue. What was the story? What happened? And what was the conclusion? Text number 81333, starting your message with the word radio, and you can email me this afternoon, mark.carter@bbc.co.uk. So keep your stories coming in on those two topics today. And with me in the studio for our lunch break today, welcome Simon Chapple. How are you?
Hi Mark, yeah, I'm great.
It is nice to see you. We're going to get your story in just a moment, but I've got to ask you first of all. Let's do the two things that we're talking about today. First up, as I say, it is a real long shot. Has a celebrity ever come to your rescue?
Well, it's funny you say that actually. Not quite to my rescue, but I was in a toilet once and David Beckham was in there and he held the door open for me on the way out. So he didn't rescue me, and I don't know if I'd want him to rescue me in a toilet. But,
okay, well now you see, if all else fails, then we've crossed it off the list.
Exactly.
David Beckham held the door open for me in the toilet. It's tenuous, but it kind of works for me.
It sort of works.
Yeah, and did you have a conversation, or did you just say thank you very much?
I was a little bit starstruck, and
Well,
I
you
just
would be, wouldn't you?
I just sort of went, hi Dave.
Do you often hang out where A-list celebrities like the Beckhams are hanging out?
Well, you know how it is.
Okay, so that's that. And then jewellery-wise, now, do you have any? Are you a man of jewellery? Do you wear any jewellery?
I'm not, but my wife is, and I think in terms of the robbery and the sentimental value, often it's those pieces that aren't worth a huge amount of money that mean the most. I've got a ring from my nan who passed away some years ago that means the world to me, but is probably, if you took it to a pawnbroker's, it's probably worth £20.
Yes. Yeah.
I totally get that, but £50 million is just such an incredible amount.
Just bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, to have in the house.
But you do hear those stories. I think you're absolutely right. You hear those stories far too often where a robbery has taken place and the appeal goes out, and or even somebody, when you hear these awful stories of a woman having her handbag taken or something like that, and there'll be something in the bag that frankly is not worth anything in terms of monetary value, but it's sentimentally, it means the world to that person. And obviously the person who takes this stuff, they couldn't care less about the stuff of no value. But these things are lost, and then they're lost forever. And that's so sad when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awful. And I would feel exactly the same way. But what you do, what do? You want to keep these items close about your person. You can't lock them up in a safety deposit box and never see them. So it's a sad state of affairs, really.
It is indeed. So share your stories, please, then, if you're listening to us this afternoon and you've got an item of sentimental jewellery that is so special. I'm really thinking of the one thing that you would hate to be parted from. Let me know on that this afternoon. And also, as I say, if you can top David Beckham holding the door open in the toilet, that's going to take some beating. But your random encounters with celebrities where they have come to your rescue, please. I think that's tenuous, to say the least, but I'm sure you may have something else to offer other than Simon's story. Get in touch, as I say, my text number this afternoon, 81333, starting your message with the word radio, or you can find us on social media. Now, we have a mix on the lunch break of regulars who've been popping up now, doing this slot for years and years. You are a first-timer. You've been on BBC Surrey Breakfast on a Saturday with James before doing the papers, but this is your first time on the lunch break. And we need to know a bit about you because you've got a remarkable story.
Yeah, well, it is it's kind of remarkable, but actually I've realised that thousands of other people have the exact same story.
Mhm.
So I was a heavy drinker for over 20 years. I was started drinking red wine in my teenage years, and I escalated to sort of 1, 2, sometimes 3 bottles a day.
Wow.
And I was drinking to cope with anxiety. When I was a teenager, it was loneliness and sort of sense of insecurity. And I drank to deal with the anxiety, thinking it was helping me. I genuinely believed that alcohol was making my life fun and improving my life in some way. But as the years went by, I realised that this relationship had turned toxic, and it was a struggle, but in the end, I managed to end the relationship with alcohol and get divorced from it, so to speak. And since then, I've moved on to become an alcohol coach. I work in large online groups on Facebook, coaching people to quit alcohol. I've worked with literally thousands of people. I've recently released my first book, which is called The Sober Survival Guide, and I run a Facebook group called Be Sober, BE Sober, which is one of the fastest growing online sober communities in the world. And there's actually quite a few people who listen to the BBC Surrey slots that I did who've actually joined the group and connected with me, which is so awesome. So and what I've since done is I've become an advocate for an alcohol-free life. I don't preach to people or judge anyone who drinks, but I really do want to reach out and help anyone who thinks that they've got a problem with alcohol or feels that they should change their relationship with drinking. And obviously now's quite a time for it with Christmas and dry January coming up.
Yeah. Why red wine in the first place? Because I wouldn't have thought as a student, thinking back to my student days, it wouldn't necessarily been the first thing that I would have turned to.
Well, my dad used to drink a fancy French red wine called Beaujolais Nouveau.
Yes.
And I think it was just conditioning as a child. I saw him drinking it all the time and I wanted to be like him.
Did he have a problem drinking?
No, he drank most days, but it wasn't a problem. He would drink maybe 2 or 3 glasses in the evening.
So what do you think it was for you that made you kind of lose control? Because it sounds to me, so if I was to go out this evening and have a couple of drinks because it's Christmas, I don't think you're the sort of person to be saying, oh gosh, what on earth are you doing with your life? You're not saying alcohol is wrong full stop, or are you?
No, absolutely not. And I would never judge anyone for drinking. But yeah, unfortunately for some people, you know, we tend to be all or nothing type people.
And you can't control it.
Yeah, you can't control it. It is an addictive substance. And, you know, I got addicted to it. But thankfully, I found the way out.
And what was that moment where, from talking to people before who've had problems with alcohol, there needs to be a particular thing that happens. So everybody could be turning around to you and saying, Simon, you're drinking too much. What was it specifically that made you turn a corner and think enough is enough?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's a chapter in my book called Do I Have to Hit Rock Bottom to Quit Drinking? And I found there's 2 sort of sides to this. People either have a terrible incident, for example, they get caught drink driving, or they have an accident, or something really terrible that's like a light bulb moment. That actually didn't happen to me. I spent about 5 years knowing I had a problem but not knowing what to do about it. And I actually think that's worse. It's quite a painful place to be. And then one morning I was sat at my computer and my hands were shaking and I couldn't stop them shaking, and I realised it was from the drinking. And really it was from that point onwards I knew that something had to change in my life.
And so how did you change?
Well, I started educating myself and understanding the truth about alcohol and looking at my beliefs. And this is where that is the key to changing your relationship with alcohol, is looking at what you believe. You know, I believed alcohol was fun. I believed I couldn't go out without drinking and have a good time. All my beliefs were wrong, but I didn't know that. I thought they were all true.
And how long have you been completely sober for?
Best part of 2 years now.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks.
And how do you cope with this time of year? Because if you aren't about, I don't know, do you still go into pubs? Or is that difficult?
No, it's not difficult anymore. When you quit drinking, the first 2 or 3 months can be challenging. Things can trigger you and you can feel like you really want to drink. But as time goes by, it gets easier and easier. And I just observe things with a sense of curiosity now. I sort of have an inquisitive nature when I see people drinking. We had the work Christmas party recently, and you can see the sort of stages of drunkenness. And then some things that I used to do, actually, I just don't enjoy any longer.
So if you're at the party, you're at the office Christmas party, and let's say 3/4 of the people in the room are merry, to put it politely, how does that leave you feeling as somebody who is stone sober at that point, and you've been on, I don't know, a Coke or lemonade or whatever you drink now? What are you feeling when you're looking around the room? Do you still feel that you can be part of that party celebration?
To an extent, but I've found that events that are largely based around alcohol become boring. About 10:30, 11 o'clock, people are drunk, they start repeating themselves, they're not listening to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I tend to just leave when I've had enough of an event. But equally, you can still have an awesome time, you can still dance sober, and you can still join in and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so do you ever feel now, I presume your friends and so on are very much aware of the situation and the things you've been through, but do you ever still feel that pressure, that peer pressure? Oh, go on, have one, it'll loosen you up a little bit.
Yeah, people say that to me from time to time, and I had a few friends, particularly at the start, who didn't think it would last. I got called boring. To me, it just motivated me to stick with it and keep doing what I was doing. But I don't feel the pressure. And I think because of what I do and my kind of profile in the sober scene, nobody would try and pressure me because they know that there's just no way I would drink.
And so quitting alcohol is one thing. What's then turned you into almost like an ambassador for being sober? What was it that, for example, led to the publication of the book?
So what happened was several months after I quit drinking, I'd started a website and I was sharing my story and my experiences on the website. And I asked a lady called Annie Grace, who wrote a book called This Naked Mind, which is one of the largest selling sober books in the world, whether she'd do an interview for me. Her book actually helped change my life. She agreed to do an interview, and at the end invited me over to America to train as an alcohol coach with her. And then from there, she invited me to talk at a big convention in Denver, live on stage about my story and about sobriety. And really then, people sort of started getting to know me and my profile grew. And I wanted to write a book as well, because there's loads of books that help people quit drinking and give you the tactics, which my book does, but there's very few that set you up for success over the long term and set you up to deal with the challenges that you'll face. Like, my book's got specific chapters around how do I go to the Christmas party without drinking?
Sure.
How do I go to a wedding without drinking, on holiday, that sort of thing, which is why it's called the Sober Survival Guide.
And is there evidence out there of how many people will relapse at some point? In other words, again, it's not an issue that I frankly encounter, but one would imagine that pressure, particularly in the early stages where you're trying to stop drinking, that pressure, you can buckle under the pressure from people or from simply seeing a bottle of wine or whatever it is. How many people will relapse before they eventually find their way out of it?
Well, I don't know what the numbers are, but I only know 2 people who've quit drinking, on a dime and just stopped and never gone back. Everybody else that I've connected with, and there are thousands of them, have a slip up along the way, and it's part of the journey. And instead of becoming emotional and upset about having a slip up, we need to use it to learn from it and grow stronger as we go forward. I mean, I had multiple attempts and days when I was in tears and upset, beating myself up because I didn't think I was ever going to get where I wanted to be. I mean, I always say to people, we only fail when we stop trying. So as long as we're still trying, we're moving forward.
And I've seen your website. You've also, though, mentioned that you do a lot on social media. What sort of things are you able to do for people on social media?
Well, the biggest thing's my Facebook group. We've got over 7,000 members. It's a completely free private group, and it enables people who want to quit drinking to connect with others who are on the exact same journey. They can share their experiences in a completely safe space and get advice, tactics, tips. They can reach out for help if they're having a tough day. So that's probably the biggest impact on social media. But I also, share stories and advice and tips on Instagram and Facebook. But the group is just incredible.
It's interesting. I suppose I think back to when we did the My Cancer story on this radio station a couple of years ago, where, yes, we did hear from some of the experts along the way, but more often than not, the most powerful thing that came out of that week of special shows was the sharing of experiences and somebody being able to hear someone's experience of dealing with cancer, and I guess in your situation, someone's experience of dealing with alcohol addiction, and thinking, oh yeah, their story I can really relate to, because everyone's is slightly different.
Yeah, exactly. And they're slightly different, but ultimately the same. You know, we're addicted to this same substance.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember the first time I met another person who was sober, and it was just a sort of wow moment in my life. And then I realised actually there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of other people who are on this same journey, and it really is so powerful when you can connect with somebody else who can share and understand what you're going through.
It's really good to have you here this afternoon. Simon Chapple is our lunch break guest, and we will do some stuff from the papers in just a few moments from now. It's 1:25.
Weekday mornings from 9.
Danny Pike.
Comedian